All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another Wildwoods beekeeping chat. And tonight, I do not have a guest lined up for tonight. It just kind of got too late for that. So tonight we are actually going to be talking a little bit about spring management, what I'm doing, a little bit about spring feeding. So what I really like to do is have like a little subjects like spring management, and have little topics to go into all that. So tonight we'll be talking about spring management, which include feeding, mite treatments that I prefer, and inspecting your house. Because spring is the time of the year where, bees are going, bees are flying. It's a busy time for sure. All of us can relate to that. We're always in those hives trying to get things done. I'm in that scenario right now, trying to make sure everything's on touch, make sure everything's working. And then later, when we're done talking about topics, I'm going to be answering questions. We're going to do like a small little spring questions and answers. It's going to be a fun night tonight. So I think it's going to be a real fun night. But first, before we get into any topics, while we wait for people to jump in here, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in my apiary. Because in the Wildwoods Beekeeping, Wildwoods Honeybee Farms apiary, it's been a real busy season already, even though, we're only in April 3rd, I believe it's the date today. Even though we're this early, I'm pretty busy. I just got done putting a super on a hive like 48, 72 hours ago, I believe. And they're already up there. It was drawn foundation. I really do like to use a lot of my drawn stuff just because we're right on the bat into the spring scenario. So it's good to go and get some drawn comb into that. So therefore, I'm using drawn comb in my supers. So right now they're already storing nectar in there. So I think we're like in a little dearth, maybe just a little bit. We're not in like a big dearth, just enough where there's just not as much pollen. It's nothing to do with the cold weather because we've been having real warm spells lately in southeastern Alabama. I think it's really more related to actually the rain. We actually this morning it rained so heavy it's flooding in the front of your yard. So I mean it's been raining. So I think that's the reason why we're having this little flow that's kind of stopping a little bit, but it's going to get going more once it stops raining. This rain has been real heavy lately. It's just how spring is. Spring is that time of the year where it's a real wet season. Sometimes that wetness and that rain can ruin our grafting, our raising queens, going out to our apiaries more often. It can put a threat to that. But overall, we do need to, do that. But it's not really a big dearth. It's just enough where some of the stuff's on the ground. But yep, that's right. It's not really a dearth just yet, but in July is whenever it hits. Yep, July is the time when the dearth hits, but right now it's just a little smaller, but not bad, not really that bad at all. Just the main thing is all this rain that we've been getting lately in Louisiana. I know some other northern states that's been getting a lot of heavy rain, a lot of tornado stuff. So it's been a real wet season so far. A lot of wind and but that doesn't really pose anything to me. We'll still go out there and do the stuff that we need to do. Keep on going into the hives, making sure everybody's good, feed's good. Because now we're in that time of year. I really like this time of the year. I think everybody does. I think I've discussed it before, but this is one of the busiest seasons. It's just really, very, very, very a good time of year. But I know some of the northern people up in like Idaho, maybe Vermont, those northern states, Canada, maybe, are getting like snow and it's cold up there. And I'm glad I don't have that kind of weather because us down south, we're used to all this nice warm weather. Even if we get a little cold weather, we're not a big fan of that. So those people up north are more. That's just Wisconsin. Yep, Wisconsin as well. That's another state that's pretty cold. But because whenever they're speaking of cold, like -20, -10, we're like, well, that's cold. That's a cold snap, and then or maybe 0, or maybe 20, or maybe 15 degrees. We're like, oh, that's so cold. But those people up north are like, nah, it's not that cold. That's a warm spell. Yeah, that's kind of how everything kind of plays out. It's how everything goes through because there's so many different people, so many different locations where everybody's located. That's one of the part of things in beekeeping. That's one of the favorite things I like about this YouTube stuff. because everybody's located in different places. Like, even if there's somebody up in Canada, they can still use some of the stuff that I'm doing, but they have to adjust it to their time. I can still use some of Canada's stuff, but I probably need to do it earlier because our season is just a little different in Canada. It's different location, but with the right fitting, and if we can adjust things that people say, we can use it. Like a lot of times, that's just kind of how it goes. But right now, wildflowers are blooming, clover, like you're saying, Lisa, it's all that stuff is blooming. Bees are loving it down here. It's really a real fun season going to see bees, collecting pollen, doing all their things that they do. It's just one of the favorite things I really like. And I think that's something that I think everybody can relate to, right? I think we can all do that because all of us down south are like, it's game on. I also have some other halves like I want to give y'all an update on the queenless hive, like the one I was doing for the split. I've not been giving much updates on that. I've been real busy doing stuff. But what's going on with that one is, for some weird reason, they're making more queen cells. So I think that that virgin queen must have, maybe something happened to it. Maybe when it was going on its mating flight, something bad happened to it. I have no idea. They just started raising some queen cells. That's how nature works. We don't know what they're going to do. It's full of surprises, Mother Nature. But there's like 10 capped cells. And that was yesterday or the day before yesterday. So if I wanted to, I could have easily went in there and take some of those cells and make so many more splits. They had a lot of cells in there. But it was a rainy day. I was just going in there trying to beat the rain. So I didn't want to make splits during the rain. That wouldn't be really fun. The bees would be really aggravated. Because during like wet, maybe a little darkness times, whenever we're inspecting, those bees are not nice. Even sometimes when it's later, all the worker bees are at the home, at the colony. They don't really want us there. Because for us down south, we have a little more spicier bees, I'd say. I have some Italians. They're pretty nice. They're not that bad. They're gentle. That's kind of what I expect them to be. But then once you go to my Russian halves, they'll get you. If you don't have a suit on, they're going to go in your pants. They'll go in your anything that has an opening, your boots. They're going to get you. That's just how it goes. But it's 89 degrees in Louisiana. That's pretty warm. It was about 79 degrees today. Tomorrow it's supposed to be like 86 degrees, I believe. That's warm right there. And the low tomorrow is supposed to be 66 degrees. That's really warm. Whenever we're saying, well, the lows are starting to get into 60s, that's really nice. People up north are really wanting that kind of weather. But kind of transitions. It's kind of funny how all that stuff kind of works out. But it does work out. People are up north are having more colder weather. There's still people of it, like in Canada, are still facing all that real cold weather, like negative 17, maybe. I think they're actually having a little warm spell, like 0 degrees. I think that's what's been going up on there. I'm not really all that sure, but that's what's really been going on here. It's been a real busy season from so far. That's what's going to be going on. We're working on getting everything prepared. 91 tomorrow. That's pretty warm over there in Louisiana. Yeah. Because, that's warm. 91. Tomorrow's supposed to be 86 here. So it's not too big of a difference. Just a little. I think like a 4-degree difference, I'd say about that right there. It's the difference maybe. But yeah, we're entering the muddy season soon. Because, once it starts raining a lot, it's going to get muddy. It's going to get harder to work the bees. Whenever I say hard to work, that just means because sometimes whenever we're trying to be on touch, trying to go out to our bees, say if we're raising queens, the day we graft, say we like put a frame that's grafted in there, we need to come back 10 days or 48 hours later, depending on what system you use. If you use the starter alone, finisher alone, you're going to have to come back 48 hours after whenever you put those grafts in the hive, in your starter hive, and then you have to take those grafts and put them in your finisher. So if it's raining on that 48-hour day, or because sometimes bees will get those cells capped within that 10-day, but they don't hatch till the day 16. That's just kind of their main, because queens are faster at hatching than workers and drones. I think the workers are about 21 days and the drones are about 23, 24 days. So that being said, whenever it's raining all the time, it's hard if you're on your day 10 when you have to take those cells out and put them in just to say like a nuke or make a split out of them before they hatch, and one of those virgin queens are going to kill all the other cells. Or if two hatch at the same time, they're going to go at it. They're going to fight, and then the one that wins will destroy all the other cells. So rain can give a little effect in that matter, but mostly it won't, in my opinion. Sometimes whenever you want to go out to your bee yard, it will be raining outside, which is pretty hilarious, in my opinion. So rain, it's supposed to be a money season here soon. Let's see. First time in boxes today here in SWPA. Drone cells everywhere. Did a flyback split on my bee weaver queen. They are spicy compared to my Italians. Yep, bee weavers can be pretty spicy. From what I don't have any of those kind of bees, but I just hear all the time that they are a little more spicier from what I know. But that's good. You went ahead and open your hives. That's really good. Because a lot of times right now, this is like the time where a lot of other beekeepers up north are actually opening their beehives and actually seeing what's going on at first pace, right? Because down here, we're already able to go in them and see what's going on. So that's pretty fun to do that. So for people up north, they're probably pretty excited to see what's going on in their beehives, from what I can imagine. But I've been in my house pretty regularly, from what I know, from what I'm doing right now. I'm into a regular. I'd say about every week or two out in the bee yard, but I'll kind of even that up. So then, like every few days, I'll inspect the hive. The next days, I'll inspect the hive, and so on. So, transferred queen cells to an incubator today. That's good. So first, before we get into the Q&A, if anybody has questions, we'll answer those later at the video. Like I said, tonight we're going to be talking about spring management. So this time of the year, as we're talking, we're on point. We're starting to raise queens. We're feeding. We're treating for mites before or after the spring honey flow. So first thing I think I want to talk about is feeding and what I'm kind of doing for the spring management. I'm always like on touch with that, trying to figure out things. And for feeding, there's many different methods you can do for feeding. I know many beekeepers use buckets. I'm sure many of you down in the comments and who's watching probably use buckets, or some of y'all may use just little mason jars. That works too. I've been using the buckets because the buckets work really well. I'm really fond of them. That's just because they hold more sugar waters there, like a gallon. You can get 2 gallon, 3 gallon, 4 gallon, and so on. But I really think that a 1 gallon bucket, or I think depending on your colony size. So if you have like a double deep, I'd say a 2 gallon bucket will work perfect. If you have a double deep and a super and you want more feed on there, you can go to a 3 gallon if you wanted to. That's your personal preference, what you want to do. That's kind of like up to you, right? Because a lot of this kind of beekeeping stuff goes down to personal preference and what people think and what people know what they like to do, right? But what I usually do is I'm using 1 gallon buckets, and I buy like a little circle lid with a screen in it. 40 microns is what it's called. I forgot what micron stands for. I already forgot that because sometimes I've lost memory. But I'm using 40 micron screen for that. So whenever you turn it upside down, that vacuum up there, it doesn't let it drip. It may drip 3 times, 2 times, and after that, you get it even on the bucket, on your lid. It's done. That's kind of all there is to that. It's pretty simple, to do that. But a lot of times people will cut holes with like a drill and then put their screen on there, or they'll use tent plugs that's found on 5 gallon pails or paint pails. So that's what some people use. I hear that they're really popular. That's kind of how it goes. But if you're somebody who just wants to buy something online that's really simple, maybe you're a first year beekeeper, you have no idea about what you should use and what you should feed or what kind of buckets you should use, then those ones with the 40 micron screen on it will work perfect for you. All you got to do is buy it, because they do make little pads on the website everybody knows better bee all of us beekeepers, a lot of times we'll buy stuff off of Better Bee, whether it be nukes, treatments, these 1-gallon bucket feeders, these pill feeders I'm talking about. But they do make little patches, 40 micron screen patches, that you can actually do it by yourself. So you can get the lid from somewhere else, the bucket from somewhere else, get it a little cheaper. And then this 40 micron screen, you can buy it separate, like just a little, let's just say, you could cut like a little square off of like some kind of little sheet of screen somewhere, 48, 1x8, I think, hardware cloth you could also use for some scenarios. You can't use that 1-inch hardware cloth thing, that's what it's called, for what I'm talking about. You have to use 40 micron screen for that, a special screen for that. So then it's like, I think it's like a few hairs, I believe. It's really, really thin. It's a little way more smaller than I'd say than the screen that you use like on porches or something. It's real smaller than that. But that's just kind of how it works out. That's kind of what I'm using. It works extremely well. I am actually really pleased of how it really works. So all you gotta do is, buy it off of Better Bee. It's pretty simple. Nothing much to it. But still, you can still do it manual and buy the little screen separate, or buy tent plugs. I know there's a lot of beekeeping suppliers who have tent plugs. But if you have like 5-gallon bucket pails or whatever, like paint pails, you can take them off there whenever you're done with the paint and put them on your bucket feeders. But they do sell them separate, but you do have to put the holes in them. So what you have to do is you'll have to have a drill with a small D-wall or some kind of bit that you can drill in there. That's kind of how it works. Did free Damari splits yesterday and dumped the colony. That was interesting. Yep, their Damari splits. We were talking about that 3 weeks ago about the Damari method. The Damari methods are really popular. So say if you don't want to do any splits, you just want to have, say you have 5 halves or 6 halves, you just want to stick with those 5 halves. You don't want to expand. You don't want to do nothing like that. So then the Damari method comes in a role and play with that. I've never done a Damari split. I hear that they're really popular, but I do know what a Damari split is. All you're doing is separating the queen and brood, and you're just kind of separating it and giving the queen and the bees down here really a lot more room, and the top bees are still up here. They can pass through. That's all there is to it. I did a video, or actually I did like a little live chat a while back. I think it was 2 weeks ago about that. It was real cool. But sometimes whenever beekeepers, or even me, for instance, go and think about it way too hard, it can seem difficult, but at the same time being, it's actually not that difficult. We can all relate to that. That's just something how it goes on. But it's actually not that difficult. If you're somebody who knows Damari splits, it's probably one of the easiest things you've ever done. But Damari splits are really good for that matter. That's what I think on spring feeding. Of course, you can use like little mason jars, like a quarter or half a quarter, and do it 1-to-1. My problem with that is my halves take a jar instant. Like they'll have it consumed within about a day. Actually, they'll have it consumed within a day. Like I'd say within 12 hours. So what I have to do is I have to actually go out there 2 times a day and refill it. It gets to the point where that's pretty hard to do. Say if you're on a time-consuming job, or you're doing something at that moment and you can't go out there and refill that. That's where the 1-gallon buckets with that little screen, or whatever you want to do with the little tent plugs or screen, that's whenever that comes in handy. See, that's in my case. Of course, I can go out there a few times a day. It's no problem. But I'd rather have a 1-gallon bucket sit on them for a couple of days so they can take it a little more slowly. But instead, if you just use a small jar, they can take it pretty quick if they're really that hungry. They will. I have my split. They take one of these little jars I'd say about this long, about this in the circle of the jar. They'll take that within 5 hours, or 6, 7, 8 hours. It's just insane how they do it really that quick. it gets to the point where it's hard to go out there all the time and refill those jars. So I have to go out there and redo that and actually, refill them all the time, which that may not be a problem for some people. Like for me, it's not a problem, but I rather, have a 1 gallon bucket on them. So like my second bee yard, now I did a video on my second bee yard that I'm talking a little bit about it. It's a real cool thing I'm doing. It's going to be exciting to see how that new bee yard plays out. I'm sure many people are excited for that. But if you're somebody who has 5-6 yards, maybe you're a commercial beekeeper, there's just no way you can go out to each yard 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and refill those little jars. You have to use bigger 2 gallon, 3 gallon, 1 gallon buckets to do that. So that's where when the 1 gallon buckets come into play. There's a thing going on like, which one should I use? Should I use a 1 gallon, 2 gallon, 3 gallon, 4 gallon, 5 gallon, and so on. So I like the thought of this. So if you have, like I said recently, if you have a bigger hive, they're going to take it more quickly. So 2 gallon bucket's probably what you want to use. If you have like a 2-framer, or I'd say about a 5-frame nuke, I'd give them 1 gallon bucket because that's all they'll need. Because if you give them too much, the longer that sugar water sits in there, the more it will stay there. It'll get moldy. It will ferment. And that's no good. You don't want that. So the quicker they can consume that, the better it is. A lot of times, of course, you're going to have a little mold once in a time, on the sides. But what you have to do is take a rag and clean all that up. That's just what's going to have to happen, and clean it up. Make sure there's no moldy stuff on there. A lot of times that's another thing that we'll talk about maybe sometime tonight or sometime in the near future about, should you use moldy comb, moldy stuff, moldy things? Will bees care? That's something that I hear a lot of times beekeepers will ask, beginner beekeepers, but who knows? Some of you might want to know, but we'll talk about that sometime in the near future. But that's feeding. Feeding, something that I really like to talk about feeding. I don't know why. It's just something that I really do like to talk about. It's a real good topic for beekeepers to come together and talk about on live chats or in person, give each other's thoughts on the methods for feeding. Because, going into feeding, you can also add additives to 1-to-1 sugar water or 2-to-1 sugar water. You can add like Honeybee Healthy, or what was that one called? Apis Biologics, Biocontrol, or Biocontrol, right? That's for a 1-to-1 sugar mixture. And you also have some others. Like I said, Honeybee Healthy is one popular one. But for me, I don't add much additives. I have added additives like Apis Biologics, the only really additives I add to my 1-to-1 sugar mixture. But overall, I don't do that. Why? Well, because I'm using that 1-to-1 sugar water to stimulate the queen to lay more eggs to the point where, hey, she's going to lay more eggs. That's great, right? So another reason why I also use it is sometimes whenever I want them to draw out a frame, or maybe say I want them to draw out a super. Actually, I would not do that that's one thing I want to get them to. If you want them to draw out a deep, you can 100% take a 1 gallon bucket, 2 gallon bucket, 3 gallon bucket and put on them. But if you have a super, this is a thing that I don't know how many beekeepers really care. But sometimes if you're feeding and you have a honey flow or whatever, sometimes what will happen if you put a super on your hive and you have that little 1 gallon bucket on them and they start drawing it out, and once they have it all drawn out, if they still have some of that sugar water left, what they're going to do is they're going to start using that 1-to-1 sugar water. They could and use that and put it into cells. They use that for the honey. You don't really want that happening in your hive. That's something that we don't want. Why? Well, just because we want the honey to be pure nectar, pollen that they gather from the trees and from flowers, from wherever. So that's something that we don't want happening. So whenever you're trying to get them to make honey, I would not use any 1 gallon buckets or 2 gallon buckets, because that can stimulate them to start putting all that 1-to-1 sugar water mixture, bee syrup, and put it into your supers. And none of us want that to happen. So my hive that I have a super on it, I do not have any sugar water on it. on my other hives, here's one thing I really like to go by. I like to say, if I have a super on my hives, I do not feed 1-to-1 sugar water on it. Unless if you're going into winter, then I will. If you're in fall and you plan to leave that super on, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're trying to collect some honey from the hive, you don't want to feed them. That's just something that you may not want to do. But by all means, if you still do, there's some pros and cons that go into that. Pros are they will draw out that foundation pretty quick. Con is once they have that all drawn out, if they have any left over, they could drink all that and put it into your cells and make honey out of your bee syrup that you probably don't really want. I would imagine. I don't want that happening. So if you probably have a super on, I probably wouldn't do that. But I think it could be effective for drawing out comb in that matter. It's all personal preference, in my opinion. But feeding something big, I really love talking about that. And throughout my strategy I've been working on, and I'm still kind of going under some stuff. I'm still figuring out what's the best feeding mixture for my local area. So last year, 2022 through 2023, the winter, what I did was I was feeding candy boards. So many people asked, why are you feeding candy boards in Alabama? Isn't that something weird that's going on? But it all paid out real good. I only fed those candy boards to 2 single deeps. So whenever they ate that stuff real good, and I think that's the main reason why my strongest hive is where it is at. If I never fed, they'd probably be a little more slower. So what that does, that sugar brick, you could basically call it a sugar brick, right? But I'll do like little candy boards. I put it on a wooden board and slap it on the hive and then let them eat it and then into cold weather. But if it's warm, I do not feed them just because, that's just not what I really want to do. I don't really feed them during warm weather. But once it's during cold weather, you can definitely feed that to them. But this coming up year, I think I'm going to try out some more candy boards, but I think I'm going to incorporate more stuff. I'm going to actually maybe leave a hive without any food, make sure they have a lot of honey. I'll make sure I feed them during fall, and then once they're done feeding in fall, I just leave them for the winter. Come back in, let's just say about April, maybe March if it gets warm like it did this year, next year. That's when I come back and check them. We're going to try that out. We're going to see how it goes. There's a lot of different ways of feeding. People up north will do more feeding than me, but I just kind of do it off and on. That's just kind of what I like to do. And next thing I think I want to talk about within the spring management. Now, first of all, spring management is according to different subjects like feeding, spring inspections, let's just say mite treatments, all this different stuff. So next thing incorporate of the spring management would be treating for varroa mites. So usually beekeepers will treat in fall, maybe spring. Sometimes people will get like an OA vaporizer, oxalic acid, and put it in there during winter because usually in winter, the bees are broodless. So that's a good time where you can get OA vapor into your broodless hive. That can be a problem for us down south because sometimes we will have a time where we always have some kind of brood in there. We have hatching brood, we have sealed brood, so we can't really get a good vaporizer in there, but at the same time, it still is effective at some parts, but it's just not going to get a full treatment in there. But for people up north, that works perfect during winter. But for the most case, in about, I'd say before or after a honey flow, because you do not want to put any treatments whenever you're harvesting honey. But, because why? Well, that's just maybe could be hazard to humans or something like that. Because, all this, there's like thymol acid, oxalic acid, what's some others, formic acid, like Formic Pro has formic acid in it. Some others, Hop Guard maybe. There's so many different treatments. I can't cover all of that. But that's just kind of how it is. But what do I like to treat? People may ask me, what do you like to treat? What's your favorite mite treatment? Do I like to use oxalic acid? Do I like to use Apigard, Apivar? So let's cover this. So Apigard is temperature relevant. So that means it has to be a certain temperature for you to treat. So you have to do one dose or a full dose in a such and such temperature and get other dose for a such and such temperature. It can get confusing. So you gotta, it's just temperature involvement. You have to make sure that your temperature is to the point where you can use the Apigard. So Apigard is that kind of treatment. So if you're in a hot, or say if you're in a fluctuating temperature, one day it's gonna be 90 degrees, one day it'll be 70 degrees, one day it'll be 100 degrees. There's states in the United States where that happens. So if you're in a fluctuating temperature state, I would not use Apigard. But if you're in a place where it isn't, Apigard can be a good choice for you. Also, Apivar is a really choice that I know a lot of beekeepers really like. Apivar will give you that similarity where you do not need to care about any kind of, let's just say, the temperatures. It's not temperature sensitive. You can put it on whenever the temperature is. You can put it on during, after the flow or before the flow, or in fall. It does not matter what the temp is. Apivar has been my favorite right now. I'm using a lot of Apivar lately, but I have some Apigard right behind this little thing right here in a little box that I bought from, what was it, Man Lake or somewhere like that, where I ordered some Apigard. And it works, but I think I used it in the wrong time. It kind of got cold, so it kind of froze up for some weird reason. Like on the top, it was just hard. It felt like candy, like sugar candy that you do, like my candy boards. Felt like that. It was weird, and I did not know really why that happened, because I never used Apigard in my life. Apivar is what I've been used to. I've really liked that. But you have Apigard, Apivar, you have oxalic acid. Oxalic acid, you can do the oxalic acid dribble method. You can do oxalic acid vapor. They also had a oxalic acid extended release OA, but from what I can hear, they took that down for some states. What was it? The EPA, I think, took it down, if I'm correct. I don't know why exactly. You have to watch some news on that, or beekeeping channels. They can, kind of inform you on that kind of information. But yeah, you did have extended release OA. A lot of people really like that. No treatments between now and super pulled down in July. Apivar in August. OA vaporizer October and November. How I do in PA, Pennsylvania. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's how you that's a pretty good strategy in Pennsylvania, because I know y'all have a different temperature in Pennsylvania from what I believe, because up there it's a little more northern than us, because like in winter they have a lot of cold weather. But that's kind of how treatments go. That's basically all there is. You have HopGuard, but from what I hear, HopGuard is no good. It has a bad result. And you have, if you have any other treatments that y'all know, but those are the main picks. That's just kind of how it goes, right? Because there's some other ones off to the side that you can get, but that's the one that's most popular. But that's just kind of how it goes. But now that we're done with treatments, next thing I kind of do want to talk about is, I'd say, spring inspections. That's popular too. So when you're inspecting your hive, you're looking for a certain number of things. You're looking for bee bread, you're looking for resources in the queen. So I'm not talking about what you should look for in spring inspections. I'm just saying what I like to do. So what I do is, whenever I'm inspecting my hives in spring, I'm looking for a number of things. I'm looking for a queen. Of course, you don't have to always find a queen. You can just make sure there's eggs. Make sure there's eggs that tells you that there is a queen in the hive, that lets you know, okay, I got a queen here. She's been here recently. I don't have to worry about it. Or another thing that you can also look for, because you can look for the queen. Sometimes the queen is harder to find the queen. You know, sometimes that can be harder to find. But a lot of times what beekeepers will do is they'll put like a blue or red dot on the queen, mark her, and then you can see her. She stands out better. There's a thing, red for this year, white for this year, blue for this year, different colors for each year. But what I'm doing is I marked the queen, my Russian queens. So what I'm going to do is I'm mark my Russian queens white, while I may mark my Italians blue. I don't really care about, really doing that. I'm not really I don't really care if I mark my queens or not. But it will help me find queens. That small Russian hive is the one that's the queen that's really hard to find. Sometimes I'll miss her. I actually found her, and that time I was like, okay, I'm actually going to just mark her so I can find her easier. So I marked her, and it worked good. I used Vincent One's little queen catcher from Lee. Lee's down in the comment section below on their 1 year anniversary, I believe. But, I was using that one. It worked out pretty good. So all I got to do is push it up and put the queens there. There's a little lever where you just push in the little cage. You trap her. There's a little piece where it kind of goes up to the point where you kind of pin her. And then you can mark her from the top. It's a real simple method. I really recommend that to beginner beekeepers. Because a lot of times, what I like to do is whenever you're marking a queen, what I've been doing is practicing on drones. Take their wings, take a little thing, mark them. If you do that multiple times and do that, and then after that, you kind of practice marking queens and you get to the point where, okay, that's good. I've been wide open, dropped 60 grafts in yesterday. Oh, that's good, Mark. I hope to see those, queens do well. Because, that's the time of year where we're grafting. I'm excited for that, Mark. Also, I'm excited for the queen, VSH. Speaking of which, before we get into anything else, I want to finish off of my spring inspection thing. So what I like to do is also like for the queen. If I can find a queen, great. If I don't, make sure there's eggs. You just got to make sure there's eggs in there. It's the only thing you got to make sure. What I do like to do is look for royal jelly, bee bread. Also like to make sure there's drones. So there's this argument I hear all the time. Do you want drones in your hive? If there's drones in your hives, does that mean that they're a bad hive? I hear that all the time, and I think that's false completely. I think if you have drones in your hive is a real strong hive. It's a good hive. It has everything that you need in it. So I think that's something that's false, something that I hear all the time. But, that's just how there's different opinions on that. But I think if you have drones in your hive, that's something good. So I look for drones because whenever you're making queens, you need drones in your hives. You have to have them. If you don't, then you're not going to have any mating. Also, whenever you're looking for mating, you want to have drone flooding yards. As we talked previously, I'm not going to go into that detail. Everybody heard me give my speak on that, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I look for bee bread, I look for all the resources. And that's about it. Just a few other things you look for. Make sure they're still alive. Make sure they look fine. Make sure. Also, whenever you're going to inspections, I like to treat my bees. I like to test them in like a little wash. I like to use Dawn dishwashing soap and mix it up. And then make sure my mite count's okay. Because if your mite count's up too high, your bees may have a dead out. You may have a dead out on your hands. There's a lot of argument about, mites, killing your bees. But I think it can. It could. Varroa mite is a big threat to your bees. Something that you definitely do want to watch out for. It's just something that we want to watch out for. Make sure we don't have any varroa mites in our hives. Make sure we're treating our bees regularly as much as we can. Of course, I don't mean you go out to your bee yard and put so many treatments into the point where you kill them, but as needed. So once you're out in your bee yard, I like to make sure I test. If they're way too high, I like to treat. If they are fine, it's not too high, I do not treat. That is according to your mite tests. And that's what we like to do as beekeepers. That's what we do, right? Test, treat, test. So you test, see what your mite count is. If your mite count's too high, treat. after your treatment is done, go back to your hive and take that thing, your little mite, make another wash, check it to the point where you know, okay, it worked. If your treatment worked, that's good. If your treatment failed on you, you're gonna have to treat with something different. Like, there's Formic Pro. I've been hearing a little bit about Formic Pro lately for my treatments. That's just something else. But back to what I wanted to talk about at the end of this little speech of spring inspections. I'd say I'm excited for queen rearing. I'm also excited for that VSH queen. Mark's gonna send me one, and I think probably second week of May. So that's gonna be something fun to do. Very generous of him. But my plan is genetics. What's the genetic line that I'm gonna be going to? So if I do get a VSH queen, whatever I do, and I see, okay, this works good for me, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna graft out of those VSH bees whenever I do get some, see how it works out, and then once it's there, once I figure out all the stuff, then I can raise VSH queens if I want to, sell them, make more splits. Now, that's the thing. Goals and plans. What's my goal for this year? I'd say about 15, 16, 17 halves. Can I make that? I'm already at 8 through 9. I think I'm about at 8 halves, I think. I gotta go back and count them again. But I'm thinking I'm about at 8 halves. That's a pretty good goal. Eight halves, that's right, 8 halves, and go up to 15. More splits I do, because if I wanted to, I could split multiple times, and I can probably make it to 20 if I wanted to. But, and also swarms, so I can catch swarms on the side, and then you can easily expand your bee yard. It's something that you can easily do, something that I think any beekeeper can really accomplish is to expand. That's one thing. You can expand pretty fast. You just can. You can go to the point where, we expanded way too fast. That's something that always happens. Or we're like, we just expanded from 8 halves to 80. How do we do that? Well, it's on that keychain. We split. We catch swarms. We do all that different stuff. You expand pretty fast. And to the point, that's whenever we want to know, how many halves do we want? If we're at 8, do we want to go up to 80, or do we want to get to 15, or do we want to stay where we are at? I want to expand to how many ever halves I have, because we're homeschooled, so we have all the time in the world to expand. So that's what I do. We're gonna talk about a few different topics. But if any of y'all have questions, because at the end of this I want to do a little spring questions and answers video or live chat. That's the title of this, along with spring management and all that different stuff. So if y'all have any questions, please leave them in the live chat. That would be really good. If y'all have any questions, whatever y'all have, bring them up. That'll be great. But a few other things I'll talk about. That's what's kind of whenever you go into genetics. Yes, so many genetics. I haven't really fully discussed that, so let's just discuss that real quick. So you have Italian, you have Russian, you have ankle batters, you have some other ones, you have VSH. What are the difference between all these genetics, and why do you need different ones? So each one is good at each thing. So Russian bees are good at waiting and handling honey. So if you don't want that Italian phase of go right into it, depending on what temperature it is, they're going to go full mode on you. And I think for my area, that is great. For some people up north, that's not good at all. You need them to really focus in on really the timing. So Russian bees will go to the point where they say, even if it's warm, they'll be like, nah, we're not going to go right now. We're going to wait till such and such date. So in that case, if you're up north, Russian bees, maybe even Carniolan bees will do good for you. If you're down south like me, I love the Italian bees. They're one of my favorite bees. I really do like Russian bees. But what I'm going to do is I have some Russian hives. Main thing for me is I want a good laying queen. I don't care what kind of genetic it is. I need that genetic to be I need that queen to be a good layer. If she doesn't really keep that hive in order, I'm just going to smash her. She's going to get the Haftel test. I don't need any bad queens. I need very, very good queens. It's just kind of how it goes. It's just kind of how we always like to do. Italians are very, that kind of thing. But, Russians are good for that kind of thing. They're good for some things and they're bad for some things. Italian bees do go very fast. But, that's just kind of how all the genetics plays out. But you have VSH bees. What are VSH bees? Varroa sensitive hygiene. They used to be called SMR, suppressed mite reduction, because what happened, first study, they called it suppressed mite reduction. But with further investigation, they found out, okay, this is not a suppressed mite reduction. This is some kind of hygienic behavior. To the point where they go from SMR to VSH, Varroa sensitive hygiene. Suppressed mite reduction to VSH, Varroa sensitive hygiene. That's how all that goes. But, that's just kind of how it, that's how all the genetics plays out. That's just kind of how everything works out, genetic wise. There's so many different genetics that you can do, so many things that you can get, so many things. There are some others like ankle biters. What they'll do is they'll, take, a lot of that different stuff. What they'll do is a lot of times the ankle biters will bite the well, a lot of times what the ankle biters will do, they'll bite the little mites off of the bee's legs. That's what they're kind of thinking. That's what they usually do. But, that's just how everything plays out. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I think we covered most of everything. I think so. If I think of anything else, I'm going to bring it up. Okay, we got a few questions here. First one from Galloway Lights, Frank. Wildwoods Honey Farms, have you ever pulled seabirds trying to capture specific flavors? All right, that's a good topic, Frank. So what I usually like to do is I don't really care about the flavor, a specific flavor, but I know what my flavor probably is because I only have a couple. My main big flow, I would say, is pine in the spring. But then at fall, I have goldenrod. Goldenrod is one of the best, in my opinion, flows for the bees. But I sometimes will try to capture a really, really specific, flavor in mind. I want something that's good. I don't really want any honey that's really, really bad. But, that's also, that's one thing I know a lot of beekeepers will ask. Like, how do you know where your honey's from? Well, we actually don't know where it's from. A lot of times when people say organic, you have no idea where those bees are getting their honey from, or their pollen, their nectar. You just got no idea. So, therefore, sometimes people can lab it or take it to a lab and see maybe what it is. But if you're just a small hobby beekeeper, you probably don't want to do that and get specific. You just want to say, I think this is a pine tree kind of honey, and I think that's perfectly fine to do that. I just don't say specifically that this is honey from my pine trees. I don't really like to do that. I just like to say, I think this is from my pine trees. It could be. It really could be, but it could not be. It could just be from wildflowers. Well, that's a good question, but a specific honey, I do like to look for, certain honeys to capture a certain flavor, but at the same time, I don't really, that's just kind of that's just kind of how I do it. Okay. We blow our bees for more honey. In Italy, we blow our honeybees for more honey. Do you do this? I don't think we actually do. No, we don't. We don't do that here in the United States. We don't really do that. Blow our bees. Let's see. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. So, because I missed so many comments, it's hard to catch up with comments up in here. Because a lot of times these things go fast. Like, we're already here at 15 minutes. It feels like it's only been 20 minutes, but it's been 50 minutes. We spent our time here talking about their different things. It's been a fun night, you know. Just kind of how everything works out. But it's been really fun talking about spring management. So, spring management, spring, it's a fun time of year. We're already here in April, I believe is what it is. We're coming up on Easter. I guess happy early Easter, but okay. Wildwoods Honeybee Farms, I say to light amber black logs in early spring flower. Yep. Because, a lot of times, depending on where you're at in the United States or any other country, it depends on what it depends. It just depends on what kind of flower you have. I know other states have different flowers. We usually have wildflowers, goldenrod. In fall and in spring, we have a lot of southern longleaf pine. That is a real popular pine that I know many beekeepers really like. They really like that kind of pollen. I know I like it. Let me do something real quick with the camera. Oh, so I guess because it's kind of getting kind of like that. There we go. Now, but there's a certain kinds of honey where a lot of beekeepers like, but there's just different places. I know other countries probably have different, stuff and different things. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. Here, give me just a second, guys. Not here. No, mine's here. Yeah. Okay. Give me just a second. I'm trying to put stuff in here. Okay. I'm trying to keep Vincent in the background. Vincent, you keep in the comments. So Vincent's back there in the comments. He helped. So Vincent, stay more careful on there because bigger channels we have more different stuff on here. So we got that. There you go. Now we can continue. If anybody has any other questions, Vincent will pick up questions. He'll pick up all this different stuff. So if you have a question, leave it up in the comments. Because a lot of times I love questions. I love to answer whatever y'all have in store. We've been busy. I've been trying to get more videos in, but since we're in this phase of actually really, doing bees, it's hard to keep the videos up, keeping content up for y'all, but I'm really doing it. But right now, I'm not really doing any more teaching. A lot of times I like to talk about different stuff, but right now I'm actually doing more of, let's just say I'm doing more of like what I'm doing. I am doing actually some reviews. If any of y'all saw, if you haven't saw, please go check it out. The V-Vorb we have review. You know what? Why don't I talk about that hive? So a lot of beginner beekeepers will ask, what company should I get my beehive from? So V-Vorb sent me like a little hive from that to do a video. I did a little review video, and my thoughts on it on the V-Vorb we have. If you saw, there's a lot of things I left out of that video that I did not mention. One of the things that I did not really like is that one, like the little holes, not, the plexiglass. That's one thing that was just kind of, off of that thing. But one of the things that I also didn't really like is like the hole was misaligned. Like if I open those little levers, it's just going to fall right off. And that's going to put an effect there. Of course, I know it's probably not that big of a deal, but I would think it'd be really, really strong. It'd be really good, But that's just kind of how things go. All that different stuff. But I'm gonna get to some of the other stuff I didn't like. And okay, let me do that again. This in the background. But other things I don't like is the little plexiglass down there. It just, the plexi, there was no plexi there. So to the point where the little window is not in use. But what they said was they're actually working on a new design. So that's going to be good. So we're going to see how that works out. I can't say that I really didn't have much of a really, let's just say, much things I did not like about it. But, it's just kind of how it goes. But, the V4 we have was fine. It wasn't nothing big deal of how everything was aligned. It was okay. It was great in my opinion. I think it was a good have. The only thing is there was no plexis there, so to a point where you can't, for a beginner beekeeper, you're expecting plexis there. If you're somebody who does not know how to put together something, to the point where that's just kind of thing. But I'm going to put some plexis there. But I'm thinking I'm going to be doing another review sometime in the near future on the new one. They're making a new design of one of the hive that does have some plexi. I think that's going to be a huge improvement. I think the hive is made out of cedar wood. It's also beeswax coated, so some beekeepers don't like cedar. A lot of bugs don't like cedar. I think bees don't like cedar either, from what I hear. But a lot of times, what I do like to do, what they did was they dipped it in wax, so that takes all that cedar out of it, but it's still made out of cedar wood. Cedar wood is a wonderful, wood for outside stuff because it is rotten, or it's mostly rot resistant in that matter. Another thing that I also did look at was like the little, things were glued together, like little things. That's fine. Because I think a 1x12 board is harder to find, so I don't have really much of a problem with that. But if it wasn't really greatly glued, it's just gonna one day, those little boards that are sticking together each other, because it's made out of like 4 different pieces of small little wood. I think about this long. It's one day gonna break. If it gets to the point where it gets so much beat on, if you're a beekeeper who uses it each year, it's one day going to break. That's just something that's going to happen. It's just one day going to break. So you just got to be careful on that. I know, Lobby, but as long as it was good wood, it'll be fine. Oh, okay. Hey, Ian. Welcome. Good to see you. How much brood is going on down there about now? Well, I know, Ian, it's probably much different than what's going on up north, because I believe y'all are probably soon going to start taking y'all's hives and put them outside right about now, maybe in the next 2 weeks, I believe, for y'all. So I know it's pretty cold. We were just talking about up in Canada. It's probably pretty cold. I'm glad I'm glad I don't have y'all's cold weather. I'm really happy about that. Tomorrow it's supposed to be 86 degrees, 67 for the low. So I think I'd say we have about 5 frames of brood in hives. We have a lot more. What I've been doing at my strongest hive, my double deep, each deep was full of brood, but they're getting honey bound each time whenever a little baby bee hatches out, and every bee can go back there and refill it with honey. That gets to the point where, oh boy, we're going to get honey bound, and they're going to eventually swarm. So what I did was I kind of took some of that, so a lot of brood, and made splits with it, or gave it to other hives, and gave them more drawn out frames. So that gives the queen much more room to lay. So that's how much brood, like at one point in time, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that big old hive that I was talking about, it had like 7-8 frames of brood, I believe, 20 frames in total. It was just unbelievable of how much brood they have. That queen in there, she is a great queen. Just really, 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 really a real good queen. So, yep, 98 tomorrow, Lee, where you're at. I hear that. I bet down in Louisiana it's pretty warm. Okay. We might get them out this weekend, but not until we get another foot of snow. Yep. Because, I guess y'all are getting a lot of snow up there. We don't get no snow. Like, even in winter, we never really get snow. It's just, but, that's just kind of how it turns out and everything. Out of our brood cycles, I've been really trying to get more brood cycles in there, because like I was saying, they become honey bound. Once they get honey bound, they can eventually pick up and swarm. That's just kind of how everything goes. Let's see. And my hives are resting open with brood. I'm about 20-30 miles from Grace and Bruce. Yep. I believe you're in Ozark. We're down here in Pike County, I think is what it was. But we're 20-30 miles from Lisa. Not really that far. Like I think Lisa's like right in the middle of me and Bruce. Bruce from Bruce's Bees. We're not really far away. So we have real similar temperatures. We have a lot of local beekeepers around here, so that's really good. Northwest Tennessee have peaking to swarm level. Yep, that's right. We're getting to the point where swarms are peaking. Bees are going really high. As long as you have a strong hive, they are going to swarm if they want to. I'm going to tell you this, the Russian bees won't swarm probably right now, but once it's swarm season, they're going to catch you off guard. So you got to make sure you're prepared for swarms with a Russian hive. I'm prepared. But those Italian hives, they'll swarm right now if you don't take care of them. Now, I got to get into my other small Russian hive because it has like 5 queen cups from what I could see. It was unbelievable how much bees were in there and how much cells there in there. Or cups, not really capped cells, but cups that were ready to be in use. So, you got to watch on that. That can be something that could really happen, that can swarm. Of course, it's okay if we leave the swarm, but, it's great to get ready for swarming. I got to get ready. 5 weeks until grafting. Yep. When's your season supposed to start, Ian? I know it's probably later than us. I know, like, Mark, a lot of beekeepers down here are starting to graft and making splits. And so myself, I'm making splits right in the system. I actually have a split in one of my hives. Like, what I did was I took that same exact hive I'm telling you about, Ian, about the strong hive I'm doing brood cycles. I took more brood out of them and put it in a different hive, and they already have a capped cell in there, so it's going to hatch. And I have another yard that's my mating yard, my drone mating yard. So that's going to work out pretty well. I think it's going to work out pretty decent. I think it's going to be something good. I think it's going to be fun this year, spring. Tonight I just didn't have a guest. I've been real busy with bees. I haven't been able to email anybody lately to come on here. Just because I've been busy. So tonight I could not. I had no time to get any guests. So I thought I'd come on here and talk a little bit about spring management. I think I may try to do more of these live shows by myself, but I'm gonna probably keep on getting on guests. But I may have to take, I may have sometimes may miss live chats because I may be really busy coming up just because of the season. The season gets pretty busy this time of year. I'm out there all the time. Oh, well, 2 inches of snow in the Dakotas. The valley will be underwater up here. 2 feet of snow, that's a lot right there. 2 feet of snow. I can't imagine what that feels like. That's definitely something I don't want. Definitely don't want that kind of weather up here. Right now we're having some real nice weather. 78, 86 degree weather. It's unbelievable how warm it is. I think we really discussed everything. I answered some questions. We did a small little spring questions and answer. We talked about some different stuff. If you have any final questions, feel free to answer. Feel free to ask before I end this thing off, because we got to eat, got to do some more stuff, work more on some different things before everything's going on. Okay, been grafting for a couple weeks now. Middle in Tennessee had half swarm last week, caught it about 8-pounder. Oh wow, 8-pounder. That's a good swarm right there, and caught it 8-pounder. That's pretty big. I'm watching out for swarming right now. It's definitely something we're watching out. We're constantly making sure our hives don't swarm to the point where we're out there all the time doing that. Already right now I feel like I have like 100 hives, but I only have like 8. I actually have 7. So between bees and garden crops, it's a season of blessings. You're correct on that, Dan. It's definitely because gardens and bees, honeybees. It's definitely a blessing. I agree right there 100% with you, Dan, on that. Because, all this stuff here it's just really fun to do. It's really fun. It's really fun to see all the goldenrod, or not goldenrod, the pine trees blooming. It's really fun to see all the gardens, because we plant, sometimes we'll help our granddad plant gardens and stuff. It's real fun to do that as well. Those gardens help the bees collect more pollen. It also helps you in your garden. If you have honeybees, pollinating your garden, that's that's really good for yourself for that to happen. It's really good. Well, I guess there's no further questions. Well, guys, I think I'll go ahead and end it off here. I appreciate everybody who's watching. And before y'all leave, before y'all check out, please give me a thumbs up. A little thumbs up button. That will help me a lot. That lets me know y'all enjoy the videos, live chats with guests, and by myself. That I appreciate it. If you're new here, please consider to subscribe and put a little notification bell. That will help a lot too. Well, fellas, thanks for watching. I appreciate you. All of y'all, y'all are the reason why my channel is here. We're at 513 subscribers, I believe. And next goal is going to be 1,000 subscribers. That's going to be fun. So maybe we'll get there the next year. I believe, we've made 500 subscribers within 6 months. I believe we can make it pretty soon. We're here in, I think, the 4th month so far. So I believe we can make it. Well, without further ado, thanks, guys, for watching. Take care, everybody. Have a safe night, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, everyone. Night. Take care.